think it's about the territory. I think as we were saying before, there's always that frontier spirit. It's almost like somewhere where you've got like a whole bunch of different people come in. You've got FIFOs, backpackers, long-term Territorians. So you've got this real mixture of population and people. And it's very, very interesting. Everyone's got a story. The territory spirit, you've got to be tough to work in. And I mean, not just tough because of the incredible, like the build up, you've got to get used to the weather and stuff, but you've got to be tough in business. I mean, it's marvellous that we've got Territorian story because we're bringing Territorian stories to global audiences. Sometimes, obviously in the case of Territory, out to 279 million homes around the world. Did it achieve what it achieved? No, it exceeded that by a couple of $1 million. Did it employ Territorians? Yes, it did. Did it provide opportunity for Territorian businesses? Yes, it did. Did it promote us around the world? Yes, it did. Did it achieve the popularity on Netflix? Yes, it went to number one, I think, and then went to number 2 around the globe. That's fantastic Territorian stories. I'd like to see more Territorian stories brought out to Australia. I'd like to see more Territorian stories going out to a global audience and bringing in money into the territory at the end of the day. Yep. We don't exist unless we bring in funding into the territory. We want to do something big and grand. And we haven't done anything big and grand for a long time in Australia. Something that's like really about the land, about, and those big stories. Really exciting. And I think it's one of those places that anything's possible. I think more so than many of the other, jurisdictions like the other states and territories.
Thanks for joining us on the NextGenNorth podcast.
Oh, you're most welcome. I'm delighted to be here.
Great. You've got quite the decorated resume in media, film, that sort of thing. How did you find your way to humble old Darwin and the Northern Territory?
Well, it was kind of interesting. I was at SBS and I was working in launching this cultural competency program. I wanted to get into a bit of DEI, and I thought I'll do that. So I was there for a couple of years. And we launched the cultural competency program, which was great. So I sort of got on people like Deloitte, Screen Australia, Westpac, Qantas, got a whole lot of clients on board. Sort of did that and then I kind of missed the screen side and being in the cut and thrust of screen. So it was on the last day that I noticed this job was advertised. I think it was in Screen Hub or one of those publications, and thought, I might just put this in, see how it goes. I kind of forgot about it after I put it in, and then I got a call.
Yep. And so, what inspired you to get into the film and media industry from the start? Were your parents involved in it? Was it just something that you were drawn to? How did that all start?
Oh, absolutely not. My dad was an oyster farmer.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, I know. It was great, right?
Where are you from originally?
Central Coast.
Okay.
In New South Wales. But lived most of my time in Sydney. But, it was, great. Luckily, I loved oysters. But anyway, but look, no, I just fell into it. I sort of got a job earlier on with in the music industry for Sony.
Right.
I just kind of was in those days, which a number of years ago now, where you could just walk in and say, well, I'd like to kind of work here. And I had a friend who worked there and they went, well, you look pretty okay, so I guess you got a job. And then started working in A&R, which is artist and repertoire, with all of the local bands and stuff like that. So I worked with Midnight Oil and In Excess, which was a lot of fun, and got to work with Jerry Harrison from Talking Heads, and he was a favourite band of mine, So, and worked in that for a while and learned about publishing and sound recording, which oddly enough has been beneficial to me now because I've still got friends who still work at Sony, oddly enough. And, if you want to license music, I'm always kind of talking to them about it. But then just kind of got into Virgin, which is where Virgin Vision, which is where film came into it. So, and I'm glad I moved into that because music went into a really chaotic period, and I think when it started to go online and all that kind of stuff, there was
Napster and that sort of thing.
Yeah, it was Napster. Yeah, absolutely, it was Napster. Yep. Yeah, it was. And so the big days of, I suppose I was in the heady days of Fun Days. It was a great job, great first job to have, but I'm glad I got out of it. I was probably better off health-wise. But but yeah, getting into film. So I got into it in Virgin and that was great. And Virgin Vision was a great organisation, like Virgin always is. I think they just hire people with probably not from your standard background. I hadn't any experience in film. But they saw some potential in there. So, and like they did with many people. So a lot of people got their start in Virgin. Oddly enough, a lot of people came from the music industry into Virgin Vision.
Seems like Virgin have their sort of fingers in many pies, don't they? Like, I remember actually doing a case study on Richard Branson back when I was at university. And some of the challenges that he had to overcome. I think he was dyslexic and a number of other things that were working against him,
Yeah.
and seemed to just move from strength to strength.
Look, he just isn't a real sort of visionary, and I think he's fearless.
Mm.
So he was able to. I mean, he did come from a good background and a good family. Like he wasn't impoverished, um, but but still that helped. But still, you've got to have that drive and that
Sure.
vision and bravery. I think he was always going up in balloons, and God knows one of his shareholders were probably freaking about it. But look, he was great to work with. And it was during a time where I think there was Virgin Music, there were Virgin retail stores. I mean, it was a lot of fun. We had this wonderful family of, virgins, basically. But yeah, and they were really good and they were a really great company to work for. And I loved working for it. It was just fantastic. And I just got thrust in at the deep end of working in screen and traveling over to Cannes over, twice, a year over
As you
there.
do.
Well, it was good, but you had to kind of find your way around. And luckily,
Sure.
I met some really good people over there who should have sort of showed me the ropes
If
and what
nothing
to do.
else, those type of opportunities would just be amazing, just to be able to network with the caliber of people, right?
Oh, it's interesting. You take on a much bigger global kind of view of
Mm.
things. I mean, you're not just Australia. I don't have that view of just Australia. I love the international markets, absolutely love it. And I did acquisitions at Virgin and then left there and went to Southern Star, which is now Endemol Shine, and did international sales, which I've got to say was a heck of a lot harder. Selling Australian content in the international market. So, which is incredibly tough. But it teaches you to be brave and to, make the ask, so to speak, and so I really learned from both of those jobs, developed a lot of different skill sets. But it was fantastic. And then again, going over there twice a year, not to buy, which is, as I said, a lot easier, going over to sell. So sitting in a darkened room in the most beautiful place in the world, selling rights, IP rights to people from around the globe.
Right. Well, it sounds like you got your start sort of pounding the pavement, if
Yeah.
there's no better expression for it. How do you think that the professional landscape has changed in that regard? Would someone like yourself be able to just walk up to, say any kind of media production firm and say, "Hey, I'm just want to have a go. I don't really have any skills." Or has that landscape changed in the sense that you need to have experience now if you want to get recognized or employed or any of those types of things?
Oh gosh, I think it's a bit of both. I think there was a time where you used to have a university degree, which I don't have,
Mhm.
and I think there was really a big focus on that. I do have a certain amount of education training, but that yeah. So I think there was a stage with that you needed to have that. I think that's kind of decreased a bit, where I think people are looking at like what other skills can you bring to the
Mm.
table. You do have to have a certain amount of skill sets
Yep.
in there. But I don't think it's ever easy. I think, I've sort of probably painted a very easy picture of that, going for jobs. I was going for a lot of jobs at that time. And you've got to look for the opportunity. I think that's the thing. If I had a friend who worked for CBS and I sort of went,
Wow.
get me in, I'll get the job.
Yep.
And then it's really up to you to push yourself through.
Mhm.
So don't be backwards in coming forwards. Like just keep pushing it forward. People will notice you. Like you could have all of the qualifications in the world, but if you don't have a bit of go about you,
Mm.
and you don't get in there and really promote yourself, then you're not gonna get the opportunities. So I think it's a bit of both. I think you've got to have a bit of sort of training in there. You've got to take an interest in what you're doing, be really passionate about what you do, and go in there and sell yourself.
Mhm.
You really do. So I think just look, what do you got to lose?
Mm.
Nothing. You just go for it.
So was that CBS? Was that the American
Yeah, it was
news
CBS.
network?
Yeah, so CBS became Sony.
Right. So
Yeah.
what was that over in the States you were working?
No, no, I was working here. So
Okay.
always in Australia. I haven't worked overseas, so I've always worked in Australia.
I thought I read on one of your bios something about
New York Film
New
Academy.
York. Yeah, yeah. So that I was very because I love New York. I've been to New York.
Yeah. Oh God, I love New York too. So, but no, it was here. It was New York Film Academy here.
Wow.
So, I sort of basically started New York Film Academy in Sydney. So launched that business. They were already launched on the Gold Coast, at Roadshow Studios, Warner Roadshow Studios.
So why the name?
New York Film Academy.
Yeah.
It was a subsidiary.
An offshoot.
Yeah,
Okay,
it was of
right.
New
Yeah.
York Film
There you go.
Academy. New York Film Academy was founded by Jerry Sherlock out of New York. Famous saying of his, "Learn by doing." So
There you go.
yeah, and look, he was, I think, largely right. Just get in there. within about the first few weeks, you had to go and make your first short film. It was only like probably 90 seconds long, but so really just practical, really practical skill sets. So starting that in Sydney, which was great, and then I got them onto the lot over at Fox, which is now Disney Studios. I had a really good contact there, but I eventually took over Australia. So became CEO of New York Film Academy Australia.
Wow. So you've held some really high
Mm.
level positions,
Yeah.
around the place. What can you tell us about some of maybe the jobs you did in Queensland as well?
Well, I went to Queensland as the festival director of Brisbane International Film Festival. An old friend of mine who employed me at Virgin. Go figure. There you go. See,
Full circle.
I know. You just meet people as you come along. So he called me and just said, "Do you want to, go for that job?" And I went for it. I mean, it was a competitive process, and got it. So then running a festival, I'd already been on the board of like the actor, so I kind of knew quite a bit about festivals and putting on those events. But yes, I went up there with that, and then eventually became COO of Screen Queensland. So I took on that production side and development side, and it was a much bigger role, sort of working directly to Brian as CEO. So yeah, Screen Queensland was good. It was there's always a push pull there because they really have sort of created much of their production due to inbound production. So you've got whether it be Aquaman or Fing, which is actually shooting there now, which is Taika Waititi's children's film, or whether it be Anaconda, which is shooting there now as well. They've really kind of dominated that market, I think, originally. I was probably more so probably Queensland and New South Wales through Fox, now Disney. Um, so it was pretty exciting, but you've got to kind of look at always working with the local filmmakers. You can't just forget that. You've got to have a healthy balance between both, not just inbound and bringing in people from interstate, but you've got to make sure that you look after developing your local IP, that you look after providing opportunities for the local producers. Ludo's one of the people I worked with originally there, who are the creators of Bluey.
Right.
And
Amazing.
they were a small company at that stage. And I remember we did the enterprise program, which we launched up there. And I think they were one of the first recipients of the enterprise program, which gave them some money, a certain amount of money to really accelerate their business,
Great.
which is good.
So you've got all this experience. Now you've arrived in the territory. So
Yeah.
when did you actually get to the territory, and what was the allure that sort of brought you here?
Oh, look, it was a bit of an adventure. I've always had that attitude of like, gee, if you don't like it, you can always leave. And I thought, why not? Let's just see what it's like. And I just thought it's somewhere. I mean, I don't even transited here. I think I transited here on the way to India.
Right.
One
Via
time.
Darwin, was it, or?
Yeah. This
Yep.
is years ago,
Yep.
which was a lot of fun. Anyway, and I just thought, look, you know what? I'm just going to give this a go and see what it's like. And got here, and it was pretty interesting. I think the thing is about the territory. I think as we were saying before, you've got a lot of well, I'm a bureaucrat, and a lot of a lot of government employees and
Yep.
stuff like that. So very governmental, but there's always that frontier spirit. Like, it's a really interesting place, and I think even more so than Brisbane. When I was there, or the Queensland, it's a much more kind of. It's almost like a somewhere where you've got like a whole bunch of different people coming in. You've got FIFOs, you've got, sort of like your backpackers, you've got people who come in and stay here, you've got people who travel from all over Australia who might come in for a few years and go back, you've got, long-term Territorians. So you've got this real mixture of population and people. And it's very, very interesting. Everyone's got a story in the Territory, I think.
Yep.
Whether you're local or whether you've come in from interstate, or whether you just fly in, fly out. So it's a really interesting place to be, really exciting, and I think it's one of those places that anything's possible. And I think more so than many of the other jurisdictions, like the other states and territories.
Yeah. Do you think it's just down to how limited our population is? We're sort of spread massively, over a huge geographic area. Is it that type of thing, or is it just more of like, is it like a philosophical sort of approach where people just are different up here? It's remote, it's harsh, it's just a different mentality.
It's territory tough is what it is.
I like it.
You've got to be, I think the territory spirit, you've got to be tough to work here. And I mean, not just tough because the incredible, like the build up. You've got to get used to the weather and stuff. But you've got to be tough in business. I mean, it's not easy here, I mean, you've got to have strength in the territory.
Mm-hmm.
You've got to have resilience in the territory. It's not an easy place to be. I have a really high regard, for people who start businesses here. I mean, it's not easy. You've got that kind of, you've got big spates between you have the dry season, and you've got your build up and things
Yep.
like that when, there's not a lot of work. And you've got to create that and exist. And I think just existing here is tough. You've got that climate, you've got that tyranny of distance as well. Like you say, it's a sparse population, big land mass. And you've got to be tough. You've got to have that resilience here. You've got to have that determination in the territory to make it work. And I think that's the thing that makes the territory. It is that territory tough. You do toughen up in the territory. And I've got to say, Territorians don't take any crap, to be honest. That's my
true.
feeling.
Yeah.
You've got to be, pretty straight with people, straight up with them and really develop those relationships.
Yeah.
You can't come in here and just go, well, I know everything and you guys know nothing. You get in here, Territorians have been doing it for years and years, and you've got to have respect for the locals.
I think we're known for being pretty laid back, but I think we also set boundaries. So
Oh yeah,
that's what you
pretty
got to
feisty.
do. Yeah.
I think.
So
Yeah.
have you taken that sort of territory tough approach to screen territory, or is it a bit of a different manner?
Oh, a bit of that. I mean, sometimes I use it on interstaters, so when they come in, Look, I took the attitude here that I work in the territory. This is the role I have. This is what I'm employed for. And I wanted to work with the local industry to find my footing, to really kind of delve deep into it and just to see what was here, learn about it, because you can't come in and make change or do anything when you don't really know what you're dealing with. And you can't come in with preconceived ideas. You've got to come in and develop those relationships with the Territorians. And I've got to say, they were pretty tough. I mean, I've sat in meetings where I've had people sort of going, yep. So what are you going to do for us? So, it wasn't like everyone was waiting for Jennie Hughes to come here, background or not that I have. And you've got to earn your stripes basically here. So, and it was coming in and going out to Alice, Springs, looking at what was happening out there with the production community, which had really had a strong production community with Karma.
Right.
With that organisation, of which so many creative people had come out of, especially Indigenous creatives. I mean, just phenomenal. Warwick, Thornton, Dylan River, Tricia Morton-Thomas. I mean, Stephen McGregor, some of our finest, Rachel Perkins, some of our finest Indigenous filmmakers in Australia-wide have come out of that organisation. So there was a really great cohort of creatives out in Alice Springs. And then finding my way around Darwin, meeting up with Simon Manzi and Tiffany Manzi, that run their business here, Global HQ, getting with people like, like just a whole bunch of them, Andy Hyde and just the local guys here as well. And then getting across and of course, Tommy Lawrence.
Of course,
one of
the
my
one and
favourites.
only. Yep.
Oh, I love Tommy. I love his spirit. I think he's great. He kind of encapsulates the territory.
He's a go-getter. That's for
sure.
sure.
No, he is, and I really admire him with that. Always have done. But just meeting the local environment here in terms of screen. And then getting into the government. Because you're working within government, whereas Screen Queensland, you don't work within government. You're working as a statutory body.
Okay.
Of which the minister is a shareholder. So I think much more like NT Major Events. I think that's the way they operate here. So it was a different, different sort of structure, I think, here. So then I had to get into all of the government side of it, of which there's quite a bit, But I was working with good people at that stage and just kind of found my way there.
So when you joined to head up Screen Territory, was it a different thing when you finally got into the job and thought, oh, the industry here is not quite as developed as I thought it was. We've got a bit more work to do. Or were you sort of impressed with what you were working with? How did you find those sort of first impressions?
I didn't really have an opinion. I just we've got to get going.
Yep.
That's what I was thinking. It's like I just had ideas immediately. I knew there was, the thing was there was talent here. That's
so there was a bit to work with.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
I mean, I'd seen just before I came up here, I saw Sweet Country by Warwick Thornton, and I absolutely loved that film. I thought it was so well crafted. It didn't have a soundtrack. How strange. He used the sound of the environment of the
Right.
bush,
Hmm.
and it was
Atmospheric sort of
yeah.
ambience
And
and
he's a beautiful
mood.
filmmaker.
Yep.
He's absolutely stunning. And I saw that and went, yeah, there's talent here.
Yeah, he
There's
gets it.
absolute talent.
Hmm.
Then I met the Brindle girls, really hardworking, girls out in or women out in Alice Springs,
Hmm.
with Rachel Clements and Tricia Morton Thomas. They were out there, they'd gone to Karma as well, really passionate about the industry. Then met Tommy and stuff, and he was doing at that time. I think one of the first projects we had coming through was Outback Ringer or Outback Gunner. It was at one time,
Right.
but Outback Ringer. So season one. So that was actually really really good. So
Yeah.
so there was talent here. It was just a matter of like, how can I use my connections within the screen sector, basically sort of local and international, whether that be sort of through the agencies or through, maybe distribution companies, interstate ones, to kind of, highlight and see what opportunities were there for the Territorians. It's really about bringing in money. You've got to kind of
Hmm.
facilitate those connections with your local people.
Yep. So can you give us a bit of an overview of Screen Territory and what its real mission is?
I think Screen Territory's real mission is about supporting the local industry and promoting that local industry, growing it,
Hmm.
supporting it, and telling Territorian stories and promoting the productions and the filmmakers to a local and global audience where
Right.
you can. It's also about bringing in opportunities from interstate, for example, like Territory, or some of those things like Top End Bub, for
Mhm.
example, and providing opportunities to upskill locals and give them opportunities to work on those productions. So it's really focused on the local sector,
Okay.
about really building that capacity, building that sector, really, and really providing opportunities for that sector. And beyond that, that's your nucleus, is
Hmm.
building out from there to provide opportunities for local business
Hmm.
and bringing in money into the territory at the end of the day.
Yep.
We don't exist unless we bring in funding into the territory.
And what makes the Territory a unique filming location and destination? Like, what's the dynamic and how does it sort of differ to say like a Queensland, a WA, and then you sort of eastern seaboard in your experience?
The good thing here is that it was pristine. We hadn't had a lot of productions being done
Hmm.
here. So I think we'd had sort of Croc Dundee many years ago, Australia, which wasn't really particularly filmed here. I think it was filmed in Bowen in Queensland, most of it,
Hmm.
and with a bit done down the pier.
Hmm.
So we had this blank canvas, a lot of it. We'd done a lot of documentaries, I think, which you'd imagine, there'd been BBC documentaries done here and all of that, and some smaller documentaries for ABC, I think, and SBS. But there hadn't been those big scripted productions being
Right.
done here. Oh, Matt Wright was here, of course, as well.
Hmm.
So I think there was an opportunity to really promote the territory landscape, and it's so diverse. I mean, the top end. If you look at Darwin and surrounding areas, Litchfield, etc., it's completely different. If you go up into Arnhem,
Mm.
into Arnhem Land and all that around there, Catherine Big Rivers region, again, different kind of looking again. You have really we feel Burrumbie kids out there as well. So they've got
Mm.
different
Aesthetics.
feels,
Yep.
aesthetics to them, and,
Yep.
and different looks to them. And then you go out to the marvelous, Central Desert region,
Mm.
where you've got like Alice and all around there, out to Uluru, for
Yep.
example. I mean, it's dramatic,
Mm.
that landscape. I remember seeing Goff's Bluff for the first time. We went on a big trip out there with a New Yorker from ESPN. We took him out on a little scout, and it was, well, apart from the flies, you've got to wear your net. But it was phenomenal. I saw Goff's Bluff and went, wow, how ancient
Mm.
is this land?
Yeah.
A meteorite landed there.
Is that
And
right?
yeah, I was told that turned the earth into darkness for
Mm.
3 years. Like it is, there's stories here which are just phenomenal. So, and bumping into people like the wonderful Chris Tangi, who is so passionate about the territory. He's wonderful in cinematography and drone out in Alice Springs and all around that area. So, it was really just looking at, you had this wonderful blank canvas, you've just got all these wonderful locations, and then it's going about and promoting it. And Sebastian, who works with me, he's really, we got Real Scout in to this, database that promotes locations, crew, and all, different facilities around town. So that you've got taxis, accommodation, all of that. So we encourage people to put their businesses on that.
Mhm.
So you can go to our website,
All right.
Screen Territory,
We can put it up. Yep.
.gov.au.
Yep.
And then you can put your business on. It doesn't cost you anything. And then we promote that to whether it be interstate or overseas productions to say, this is what you've got round there. So they can get a sense of when you're shooting here, what you've got and just the surrounding area.
So is that what the process that sort of happened with Territory and then what was it, Tipperary Station? Is that sort of, did they follow that process, or was that sort of like, no, we sought you guys out for that specific purpose? What was that process like?
Well, that started with Outback Ringer.
Right.
Tommy Lawrence was working with Ben Davies, who was the real kind of key to that. I mean, they did bring on Easy Tiger Productions, which are an amazing production company who produced The 12 and Colin from Accounts and Rake and a number of things, a number of hit series. But Ben was working on, he did Bondi Rescue and a number of other sort of series. And I think Tommy was working with him on Bondi Rescue. So, it is, I mean, he was very hardworking. I was amazed at his work ethic. He was traveling everywhere and just, working on camera, just running gun type things. But yeah, so they'd been working with them. So we did, I think it was Outback Ringer season 2, again with Ben and Tommy. It was a co-production.
Right.
So Ben was kind of bringing some funding from New South Wales, etc. And was bringing some other, and he was connected in the international market, so brought on, an international distributor and stuff. So, sort of marrying up skill sets. And Tommy knows everyone in the territory, knows all the families, so well connected, is kind of not afraid of hard work, was out there, out there at Borroloola, out in the dust, filming, and stuff. So that relationship started then. I think Ben was really fascinated with the territory. I think he loved it. So and then we did, I think, the first Inventors with Ben as well. We got in. We facilitated a kind of introduction to Kean McHugh, who is one of our locals.
He's a school pal of mine.
Oh, is he? Yes, fabulous.
One of my best mates. Yep.
Great, very, very talented. I'm so happy to see his growth as well. So it's
kicking goals.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, he was associate producer on Territory. Great role.
Wow.
So look, we just, so these relationships have developed over a period of time. And then I think, Ben got together with Rob Gibson from Easy Tiger, started talking about it. And of course, we went out to Tipperary. I mean, I love Tipperary Station. I think
magic.
It's the most divine place.
Well, it's like sort of nestled between, is it the Finniss and the Daly River? Like just,
I
think it's just, like in terms of cattle country, I don't know if you can really beat it because it seems like there's a lot of water, there's a lot of life out there, and I don't know if there's a better location.
Look, it's stunning. I mean, we went out there the first time, I think, with that Right for Wild Territory. We kind of drove out there and I was just amazed at getting, driving out there and then getting to the entrance. I think it's 17 Ks to the homestead.
Big driveways.
yeah. And you're driving out there through these swags of, I mean, at that stage it was the wet season, I think, when he was filming. And it was just all kind of this big, long green grass. And then coming to this amazing homestead that's perfectly manicured, with these palm trees and green lawn and, and it was just,
well,
amazing.
You can tell that the cattle industry's had some good years, haven't you?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think they were just getting into cotton at that stage. So they started the cotton industry as well. Yeah. We met the manager out there and I mean, my goodness, all he wanted to do is don't stuff my driveway up. And I went, oh, God, okay, fine. Because it was really kind of, it was a bit soggy and wet, but they had the grader there as well. But yeah, so look, that came about with that. And then I think, it's just, we competed with that. We competed with WA were going for it.
Right.
And Queensland was really going for Territory.
So when you say competing, like what forces are at play there? So who, like, in terms of what's the genesis of the territory? Like who came up with the idea? And then when you say compete, how does that dynamic work?
Well, I think it came up with Ben and Rob Gibson coming up with, like, we want to do something big and grand. And we haven't done anything big and grand for a long time in Australia. Something that's like really about the land, about, and those big stories that you have, cattle barons. And I think they wanted to do that and have something really ambitious. It was a very ambitious series and it wasn't easy to do.
I watched it and the cinematography I thought was just outstanding.
God, Simon Duggan.
Yeah.
God, you've got the cinematographer from Mad Max Furiosa.
Oh, is that, well, there you go. That makes sense.
Yeah,
so well.
Yeah. Oh, look, it's just incredible. But I think it's a combination. It's coming up with, okay, we've got to actually have where we're going to base, where we're going to base our unit location. So can we travel
So it's
out
like
to these
ticking
places?
boxes and like what
Yeah.
fits the bill the best.
Do we have accommodation? Like, is there accommodation? Because it was a huge undertaking. There was, over like, I think we had about 300 and I think over 300 Territorians working on it. So it was a massive, and then the interstaters. So it was a massive undertaking. And then they're sort of going, okay, so what can we do for accommodation? I think we booked out everywhere. It was incredible, and I think there were 100 kind of those sort of like different kind of not caravans, but those
Demountables.
demountable things
the easel.
out in Tipperary,
Right.
as well as accommodation staying there. I think the actors stayed in the accommodation at Tipperary,
Mm-hmm.
In the actual buildings themselves. But then, you had to look at that, and then just logistics, really looking at it. So we had the location guy come up, first to kind of have a look around. We tried to get part of the studio, so we had a look at the convention centre down there to see if we get part of the studio rather than going back to South Australia, down to Adelaide to do the interiors.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, so they came in and just went, okay. And then it comes down to, okay, money. Western Australia got much deeper pockets than us. And then it's like Queensland, we're bidding for it too. We knew we had to put in a fair bid.
Yep.
If we had to put in a low bid, we just wouldn't have been in the game, because they just need to have a look at, like, and I can't tell you the budget, but it's huge.
Significant.
Yeah, huge.
Yep.
So they look at that going, okay, how are we going to pull this together? We've got, the production offset, which is a federal government initiative through the tax office. We're getting some money out of, Netflix have got to back it up. We've got Adelaide, we've got South Australia putting in some money because they're doing post-production. And then there's us. And we're like, okay, so we came up with a figure of $1.3 million. And we were able to make that work. And I said, well, you've got to spend. So we have a multiplier by 4. So you've got to spend, 4 by that. So you've got to spend that minimum amount of money. In the end, they spent $6.9 million here, and that's actual spend. So it's not something that we have a weird calculation for. It's actually what they spend on accommodation, employment, different businesses here, construction, all of that, builders, electricians, everything that you could possibly imagine. Even sort of, renting out locations that had to base their production in and stuff like that. So, hire cars, rental cars, all that kind of thing, rental vehicles. So it's everything that goes into that. I think accommodation alone was probably around about the $3 million mark.
Wow.
So it brought in a lot of money to the territory. So that's audited at the end. So we hold quite a bit of money at the end just to make sure that everything's above board and that they've spent it here. And then, so that was the thing. So it's really about that combination of making sure that you've got the locations, that you do have a certain amount of crew that can service it. And over the years, so we've had different productions like Mavericks, Barumbi Kids, True Colours, Sweet Country, all of those ones, that we've really focused on upskilling our crew base, just to kind of make sure that we've got people that can be support crew on these productions, and that we can get really good opportunities for Territorians. So they have a look at that going, oh, we've got a good amount of support. So we've got them in, whether it be costume, hair and makeup, whether it be, working in camera or whatever. So we've got to make sure we've got people that we can get employed in there. And therefore, again, they're getting upskilled and they're getting credits. The good thing is about our filmmakers here, our screen practitioners, getting credits on these productions.
Great. So what was it about the territory's bid that essentially got us over the line? Was it the higher dollar amount, or was it just the irresistible location? Like what in your mind, was it a combination of
It was a
those
combination
things?
of both, but I can tell you one thing: if we didn't put the money in,
Money
we wouldn't
talks.
have got it.
Yep.
Yeah, well, that's classic saying. I won't mention it because it's a swear. But yeah, no, you've got to have you've got to have the magic number to get them across the line, because it's highly competitive. We're all friends with our wonderful colleagues in states and other territories, and we are. And we meet monthly and talk about the industry and challenges and all of that kind of thing, and opportunities to work together. But we are fiercely competitive. I mean, we want productions for our various jurisdictions. It's really good for us. It's good for the industry. It's just it's a healthy ecosystem to bring them in. We've been really fortunate because all of our stories are Territorian stories. So I'm not to say that you wouldn't want to have a big story like an anaconda or something that could be set anywhere, or something like Aquaman or something like that they do in Queensland. But it's marvelous that we've got Territorian stories.
Yep,
Because
absolutely.
we're bringing Territorian stories to global audiences. Sometimes, obviously in the case of Territory, out to 279 million
Mhm.
homes around the world.
And how was it received? Like, I don't know if there's like an evaluation process where you guys look back and say, "Yep, we achieved what we set out to achieve." What's been the feedback on say the on territory itself?
Well, look, we look at it holistically.
Mhm.
So first and foremost, because because the government's putting in a fair amount of funding, of support for it. Did it achieve what it achieved? No, it exceeded that by a couple of $1 million. So baseline, yep, it did. Did it employ Territorians? Yes, it did. Did it provide opportunity for Territorian businesses? Yes, it did. Did it promote us around the world? Yes, it did. Did it achieve the popularity on Netflix? Yes, it went to number one, I think, and then went to number two around the globe.
Mhm.
It was, and that's averaging. It went to number four in the US.
Right,
It was number one in all these Latin American territories, which is obviously big cattle
right. Would
territories.
that be like Argentina? And
Yes,
yeah, yeah, places like that.
massively popular.
Yeah.
It was a huge number one in Australia for 3 weeks straight. Like it actually achieved everything. It was big in Sweden, for goodness sake.
Mhm.
It's go figure. It always amazes me, when we look at the world, because I love that international market to
Mm.
look at that and go, my goodness, they're
Yeah.
watching
What do
Territory.
they appreciate?
Yeah,
In
they're
different
watching it.
cultures and yeah, yeah, yeah.
And then the other thing is we got to work with, because we like to work with tourism
Mhm.
where possible. Not every production is working with tourism, that works with tourism. But it did with this, and Tony Cornby and the team launched Territory for Real, their campaign, day and date that was the launch went out. So, and they were able to capitalize on that exposure on Netflix
Mhm.
and really piggyback on that campaign and do their own campaign and really sort of go out there and attract Territorians to the territory, or not Territorians, to attract visitation
Sure,
to the territory. So,
sure.
so I think Territory really was the first really big one that we were able to kind of do that on.
Okay.
We've got a number of productions coming through,
Mm.
which is Top End Bub. We get to work with Amazon. We'll work with tourism again on that. And I'd say probably Activate NT on that as well, looking at how we do a launch here. So bringing in all of those different business units within our division
Mhm.
to maybe amplify the benefits of screen. So not just looking at it very, very linear.
Mhm.
It's just, oh, yes, we did this much and, it did that. It's about looking at how we can really value add, I think.
Mhm.
Looking at this is how much money the government's put in. Look at the value add that we can bring
Yep.
through driving tourism.
Those economic
The
multipliers you were
economic
talking about. Yep,
multipliers,
sure.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And then looking at sort of Activate as well and any other businesses,
Mhm.
which we can sort of, really touch along the way.
Mm.
So really, really important that you don't just look at it as one thing.
Mm.
So, and I've got to say, we're the only ones, pardon me, that are doing that out of all of the states and territories. They're all copying it now, but we were the first ones. So,
The
we're
blueprint.
innovators as well.
Yeah. Is there going to be a second season of the territory? Is that sort of
I don't know
been
yet, so we're
determined?
just waiting to
Okay.
see. The only thing I'd say was a very expensive budget.
Right.
So whether or not they look at that or whatever, so we're just waiting to hear at the moment.
Mhm.
But yeah, look, I love the ambition of Territory. It was just I think the last one that we did that was probably comparable was Crocodile Dundee.
Mm.
And that was so many years ago. Although we are working with the producers of Crocodile Dundee, even though we haven't put funding into that, we're working with them to see how we can do an event for the launch and do some screenings for Territorians here, which we like to do.
Yeah, it seems like there's a definite demand for that type of authentic sort of territory thing,
Yeah.
right? I
I think
reckon.
Taylor Sheridan started that. If you look at kind of Yellowstone, and now
Mhm.
he's going into the oil one. I've forgotten the name of it, but it's those big authentic stories that
Mm.
are that the grittiness of people, the
Yes.
real kind of. I'd say the real Australians,
Mm.
to be honest with
Mhm.
you. You don't get this in the cities. That's why you go out to Tipperary and you go. One of the best times I ever had was going out there because I just thought this is the real deal. You've got people out there. They're ringers. They're out there doing the stuff. We went out and had a look at the cattle. I was like, wow.
Mm.
Amazing. I just love it. I just think it's fantastic. And I think Australians and I think international audiences love it too. There's an authenticity that comes through with it. And you're not like anything else. You're not competing with similar kind of shows overseas. I wouldn't even liken sort of territory to Yellowstone. Completely different focus. I mean, as they say look at the amount of cattle that you see in territory. I think there are 3,000 head of cattle
Yeah.
that they held for that.
Right.
That Dave Connolly sort of held for that. And, that's the real deal. This is the real thing. It's not a few head of cattle that you see in Yellowstone. No disrespect to Yellowstone because I like Taylor Sheridan. But anyway.
And what are some of the other successful productions that Screen Territory can hang its hat on recently?
Oh my
I think you mentioned
goodness.
Mavericks and some other.
Yeah,
cool
Mavericks was the first one. That was
Yep.
done by the Brindle Girls and for the Australian Children's Television Foundation and Netflix Global. So that went out globally on Netflix. It's really, really great. I loved it. It was just fantastic. And things like Barumbi Kids, which is based on Leonie Norrington's books, of the same name. She's a Territorian writer. I think that won the Chicago Children's International Film Festival as well. So, you know, they're really lovely. That's a great little series. I love that series. I just thought it was great. Got sold to Netflix here just recently, which is good. I think True Colours, really interesting, mini series that was on SBS with Radaway Hick, wonderful actor, and the wonderful Stephen McGregor, one of the best writers in Australia, and the most in demand is the fabulous Stephen McGregor, who's located in Darwin.
Right.
I said to him one time, I said, you're not going to leave. And he said, I'm not going anywhere, and he just loves the territory. But the other ones that we've got Kangaroo coming through. That'll be coming in for Studio Canal. We have got, we've got Top End Bub, which is Amazon coming in.
Is that Miranda Tapsell?
Miranda Tapsell.
She was a year above me in high school. It's funny, I guess Darwin and the Territory is just so small, isn't it? You're always sort of not 6 degrees of separation. It feels like it's 1 or 2.
No, absolutely. And it's great. I have that conversation with everyone here. Every time I talk to, one of the local filmmakers, like, oh, yeah, no, I know them. I spoke to Kean the other day and I was talking about Libby Collins, who's another wonderful filmmaker.
Yep.
Well, she was a co-producer on Top End Bub.
Right. And comes from good stock, with her
with
her
Rob.
brother. Yeah, her brothers. Yeah.
Rob's a talent.
Yep.
Absolutely talented. I mean, we want Rob to do some films here. So I'd love him to do a bit more here. I know he's working on Royal Flying Doctors.
Mm-hmm.
But incredible talent, just wonderful talent. But but when I was talking to Kean, he's just going, oh yeah, Libby. Libby and I went to school together.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, amazing. And how do we sort of quantify some of the economic benefits that some of these productions, give to stimulate the local economy? I know you've got your booklet there. I don't know if you've got any sort of cool facts and figures you can refer to, or how do we quantify that?
I can tell you the difference it is. I mean, when I came here, and we've done this, we've done a summary of this for the 7 years prior. So that's 2011 to 2018. I think we did 8.7 million of NT production spend. That's spend that's actually spent on those productions in the territory. So that's hard spend. So accommodation, employment, using local businesses, catering, all that stuff.
Yeah, direct CapEx, like direct
That's
injection.
it. So it is. What we've done now in the 6 years, from 2018 to 2024, we haven't got 25 at the moment. We've done just over, because I just got an update today, just over 47 million.
Wow.
That's the baseline. So if I was to look at the baseline of anything, that's what we've got. So to look at the benefits to the economy, and we've got new businesses like Jeff Johnson Catering. We've got Castaway with Sarah Price, which is a casting company as well. That's actually sort of casting on these productions. And I get such great joy out of seeing people getting opportunities on these productions. So baseline is the money we brought to the economy and the opportunities we provide via employment. So basically, my baseline is money brought to the territory, employment, and spend on goods and services.
Yeah,
that's it. And then you look at the rest of it. I just love the fact that we've now got Kian McHugh and Samantha Lawton as associate producers on territory. We've got 2 people at the moment that are actually down working on Royal Flying Doctors service down in Adelaide. So through our attachment program, we've got 1 person working on Taika Waititi's film Thing on the Gold Coast, and another person that we've got as an attachment on Anaconda on the Gold Coast as well. And we're just about to announce another Netflix and Screenworks initiative that will provide a similar opportunity. So we've got momentum. I mean, that's the beauty of it. And out of that momentum, once we started getting those productions running,
Yep.
like even like NCIS, I remember looking at one time. I was looking at some extras on Territory, and I went, "Oh God, it's you again, and you again, and you again." And goes saying hi to the guys on the set. Next thing you know, I go into NCIS. We were filming out at the casino, and I saw, and they're chefs now behind the counter. I went, "Oh goodness!" So you've gone from being, obviously cowboy extras to being, or ringer extras to being chefs now.
Yep.
So it's just that opportunity for our creative community and for our screen practitioners to really grow their skill base and grow that confidence. It's just fantastic. So I just, it's been a great joy to me to see the success of it.
Mm.
But to see, but ultimately it's got to have the financial success,
Sure.
but it's building a business and to see the growth in it over the years. I think we're one of the big success stories of the Territory. We really are. And I know that my counterparts in the other states and territories are going, my goodness, what are you doing? When I showed them those stats, I went to do a presentation. That's as far as I got. Yeah, we didn't get any further.
Right.
It was like, that's what you've done? I went, my goodness.
Yeah.
So it's been really good. And then we do, we do so much more activity around that now. So it's, you've got to develop your local IP. So you've got to look at those localized stories as well and work with your local producers. I was determined not to make it just straight inbounds and forget about the local.
Mm.
You can never lose that focus of local.
Well, that was going to be my next question. I mean, it's great we've got these sort of larger scale productions going on in the territory now, but because that, I think that provides a pathway
It does.
for younger people. But, in terms of supporting local content creators, does Screen Territory play a role in that for like little guys that have got their own thing sort of going on over here? Yep, we can help you guys out, by joining this project, or we've got funding that we can sort of help you guys with, or training or things like that.
Oh, no, look, absolutely. Our Screen Grants program, like annually, we have development. So there's seed and then project development. So if you have an idea, you put a little bit of seed in there. It's all evaluated through an external assessment panel just to make sure it's transparent. So there's no bias going on in there, that it's really, that it's actually a transparent process. And so you can have an idea and then development, can develop that. And we do facilitate those introductions to some companies that we feel, might be a good collaborator,
Yep.
in other jurisdictions. It's all about trying to fund these things at the end of the day. So it's good to kind of work with other people who can bring some money in. Like, for example, with Kangaroo, that was we made an introduction between Kangaroo and Studio Canal, between Brindle and Studio Canal, and said we'd like to have them on as part of our funding. We think you'd benefit by having Brindle on board. So Brindle came on board and co-produced with Bunya Pictures and Studio Canal, which is great. So we do that kind of thing as well. And of course, they benefited by having Brindle on board, having a local company. You really do benefit by having that local knowledge.
Yep.
But development wise, we like to have those ideas and develop those projects. So we've actually got a number of them in the pipeline at the moment, which is really good. And the one thing I'd like to mention with Stephen McGregor again, he wrote on Territory, he wrote on True Colours, he wrote on NCIS. Like, Territorians are doing various things. So they're not just, so we've got the development of IP, but they are working on all these productions,
Yep.
so which is really great. So we do like to have that focus on IP. We want to make sure that we're getting those stories and that we're developing that and that we're developing capacity to make sure that our local creatives, our writers and our local directors and everything are getting that opportunity. I mean, we've only got to look at sort of Thou Shalt Not Steal to really, I mean, what a talented bunch. Dylan River, hottest director in town, and just brilliant. Lovely guy and just so incredibly talented. When I saw that, we watched the whole 6.5 hours at a launch in Alice Springs with Stan there. We did a special event and with tourism there as well. We watched it all and they got a standing ovation at the end. It's such a great series. Went to #1 on Stan.
Great.
Like, incredible. But that's Tanith Glyn Maloney and Dylan River. that wonderful Warwick Thornton dynasty that, came out of that. So they're the local guys, and our local creatives, as I said before, are just so incredible. And the other thing that we do out of that, so you've got the development, we encourage our filmmakers to attend various, conferences interstate. So we're a big supporter. Go forth, just be brave,
Yep.
go forth, go out there, just go around and meet people. So I think we've got coming up, I think we've got the Australian International Documentary Conference in March. So we have a partnership with them. So we do, do some presentations there. We provide opportunities for our filmmakers. So we have some travel funding support for that. It's an application process again. But we like to see our Territorians getting out there, meeting with the streamers, the commissioners, the funding agencies, and everyone will meet with you, and they go out there and meet and just have their content there that we invariably usually supported through development, and go out there and pitch it and see if, and see what you can do. We've got Screen Producers Association Screen Forever Conference in May, which is the big, really focused on scripted. So all those big series and sort of films as well, that you would go out there, and we encourage people to go to that as well. So we've got a bunch of, other enhancements that we have to really make sure it's not just, just this production. We make sure we've got development, these pathways through. And the other thing I'd like to mention is the attachment program. I think we've probably got usually about 6 attachments on these productions. So when you come in for us for funding, when, like, say, Territory was 1.3, you've got to have 3 attachments on there. So if you go over a certain amount, that's 3 attachments you've got to absorb in there into your budget.
Right.
And then we will add more and contribute to some more attachments that they can get on the set training. You can't go past it,
Right.
So we do that. And the other thing that we did was we've done for the last few years, which we've changed a bit this year, is the National Institute of Dramatic Art. So we will do the NIDA courses. So that might be in hair and makeup, costume, directing, producing for screen, etc. So we subsidise that heavily. So usually courses would cost you probably, say, $600 a space, cost you $75.
Wow.
Yeah,
So there's opportunity there for
yeah.
Territorians to
So
get
that's
involved.
just some kind of things. I mean, we do a lot. We're always busy
Yep.
trying to look at different ways that we can really grow opportunities
Yep.
for the sector.
Was there any sort of specific advice that you'd give to a budding Territorian looking to get into the media, film industry, that type of thing? Anything maybe specific for Territorians that would sort of maybe just help them leapfrog,
Look,
their progress?
Look, always come in and see us. Ring us up. We always do meetings. I mean, really, really important to reach out to Screen Territory. Come to our NT Screen Summit. That's one thing I will promote. It's free. It's based in Darwin. We do provide some travel support from intrastate.
Okay.
So from some of the different, from Alice Springs and various areas. Come in. What we do with that, we have a 2-day intensive, and we bring people in.
Wow.
So we had a case study of Territory last year. So we had Simon Duggan, the big cinematographer, Simon Harding. We had director Greg McLean. He did Wolf Creek, of course, and La Brea and etc. We had Rob Gibson from Easy Tiger. We had Ben Davies in there. We had all of them there, and it's always held down. And we've held it down at CDU at the waterfront. So very intimate.
Yep.
So it's a good way for people.
It's really like
just
fast track their sort of
just to come in,
development.
say
And
hello to them. They're very, very accessible.
Okay.
So you can come in. It's held during the Darwin International Film Festival, usually on the last weekend, and you can come in and just hear how it works. So we have these various sessions. We want to do a session this year, I think, on kangaroo, with the Brindle guys and Studio Canal and Bunya. We want to do something on Top End Bub and Deadlock, because we've got Deadlock Season 2 coming out.
Right.
Which is fantastic. So we'll do all of that. So all the people who worked on those things, and we'll do something about how to get into the screen industry. I think we're doing a session, we're doing various sessions looking at it, and now gaming industry as well. I don't want to kind of leave them out. So we want to do gaming as well. So it's a wonderful 2-day, symposium basically, where you can come in. really kind of get to know people. Look at what the possibilities are. Maybe have a look at what area you'd like to be in because you've got producers, cinematographers, soundies, all of it,
Yep.
directors.
Writers.
Yeah,
Yep.
writers,
Yep.
the whole thing. And you could really sort of see it. I mean, come in and just come up and say hello to us, say hello to anyone. Everyone is absolutely accessible during that 2 days NT Screen Summit. It's one of the best things that we've done. It's grown from, I think, about 6 people when I first came here, or 7 people, to like, oh my goodness, I think we had 100 in there.
Wow.
So it's, yeah, I mean, it's big. Like, it's big but contained. It's so you don't have to, you don't have to feel like, oh my goodness, I can't go up to you. Everyone goes out, gets their sandwiches, hangs around, has a chat to people. Last year we had Paul Clark, who was the producer of Finding the Voice, the John Farnham show, and also Midnight Oil just recently. He said, I'm just going to do an impromptu masterclass. So anyone who wants to stay for it, just stay here. So don't go to lunch, just stay and do this.
Wow.
There you go.
Yeah.
And
Amazing.
around that event, we always have like the ACS, who work with the Australian Cinematographers Society. We put on free masterclasses and things like that. So it's a really good way to kind of ease into it. And as I said, always reach out to us. Our website's available. You can, and we've got our phone numbers are on there. Reach out and we'll get your meeting and give you some advice.
Great. There you go. So what are some of the emerging trends you're sort of seeing in the Australian film and TV industry at the moment? And do you think that there's any implications for the territory, or are we leading the trend?
Look, we've been really fortunate. We've had a very strong pipeline of productions, and we've still got pipelines coming through. So we've got a big pipeline that goes for the next 5 years that we're tracking at the moment. Most of these productions that we work on, whether it be local or interstate, have a long gestation period. So we work with them. We work with all the producers. We make sure that we're really making sure that we're ahead of the curve. So we make sure that we keep them here, that we either keep the locals here or bring them here. So we've got to kind of make sure that's it. The only trends I'd saying is that we still haven't worked out the quota system, with content. There was a quota system that was in for many years for free-to-air television, and I don't know whether it was in there for pay, but I think, Foxtel was adhering to it, where you had to put, I think it was 10% of your drama spend back into Australian content.
Okay.
During COVID, the powers that be got rid of all that because they went, oh, well, you can't do that, because obviously you couldn't shoot everywhere and film. And that hasn't come back. And mixed in with that is the streaming quotas. So that's got to be worked out because streaming didn't exist. So I think that needs to be kind of nutted out and organised to provide certainty for the industry. Now, the streamers have been investing in Australia, which has been great. So we've been the beneficiaries of that. I mean, we've worked with Netflix a number of times, and we've got 3 projects with Amazon, with Top End Bub and Lost Flowers of Alice Hart that we had in a few years back, and also Deadlock Season 2. But I think it would give people a bit more certainty, around that. And I think that affects our sector here as well. So things that affect the national sector that are big pieces of work affect us. But on the other side, they've just raised the location offset, whereas if you're attracting projects from overseas, it's raised from, I think, 13.5% up to 30% now. So that makes Australia a really dynamic place to do business, and cost effective. The only thing I think which we could benefit from here, which we're doing a scoping study of, is a studio.
Okay.
Because we're still seeing a lot of the work. I mean, we're only capturing a slice. So say if it was a $40 million production, we might only get like probably a quarter of, not a quarter of that, a third of that.
Right. So you say a studio would help to capture more of that benefit.
Yeah.
What would that look like? How in terms of capital expenditure, that sort of thing? Do you have any idea what a studio would run?
Well, we're just going through that at the moment.
Okay.
I mean, you're probably looking at about, I think to run it, you're probably looking at and if you were to do a new build, probably about 20 mil, I'd say. I mean, that's just a ballpark. And that's just me just spitballing with it. But I think that's got to be appropriately costed.
Sure.
We did something with, we did an analysis, I think, years ago with Fox, because at one stage I was sort of going, well, why don't you open a studio here and we'll take the overflow from Fox Studios? Because, I want to look at that Asian market. I mean, that's one thing I haven't mentioned, but I do like looking outward, and I think Asia is a natural kind of cross for us. We're 4 hours from Singapore, very established market. You've got Korean, even though they're very localized, but you've still got Malaysia and and Indonesia there, but it's particularly Singapore, Malaysia.
Hmm.
You've still got those good markets there that
Yep.
we could naturally work with. So I said, well, why don't we take that? I think at the time, this is many years ago. It's probably going back when I first started here, probably about 5 years ago, a bit after that. But I think it was going to cost around about 15 million, I think, at that
Okay.
stage, or no, or maybe 12 to 15 to soundproof a building and do that.
Yep.
So we did go a fair way down the track, and then COVID happened.
Sure.
So we kind of had to quash that.
Mm.
But look, I think it would be good. I mean, we've still got sort of, we've got good facilities here, like with Global and people like that, and other productions here. And I think if we could bring more through, it would provide more work for them as well in the post business.
Yeah.
So that would be beneficial as well.
Probably establish a bit more of a proof of concept in terms of like, hey, these guys are already doing it. Let's invest the money in a studio and try and capture some more of that.
Yeah,
that
absolutely, and
economic
keep more of the production here.
Yeah.
Have a look at that post side with Global and Parallax, for example, and
Yep.
and Tommy's business here as well in post, and see if we could build on that and provide them with with more work and opportunities on those productions. At the moment it's a little difficult because they're getting money from the post-production houses interstate from say whether it be South Australia or Queensland or whatever else, so they've got to do the spend there. So that's what it's based on.
Yep.
So
It all comes with caveats, doesn't it?
yeah, it does. So it's a jigsaw puzzle. I think that's what I'd explain it to Stuart. It's like I'm always sort of going, oh right, okay, so I've got to do this. How much money? How much have I got? What can I do? Oh my goodness, and that's the thing. But look, we've really, with a fairly modest amount of annual budget, we've made it work, and I think it's been really great for us, and we're on a really good pathway at the moment on a business that is building. And I think the other thing is I'd like to add is that we do provide a lot of employment for Indigenous practitioners.
Yep.
I think one year we worked it out. I think 83% of our funding went to either Indigenous storylines, the productions had Indigenous storylines, Indigenous practitioners, or Indigenous-owned companies. So we do provide that employment, and I think that it really provides this aspirational side for young Indigenous, whether it be school leavers or sort of aspiring filmmakers, to say, I could be a Dylan River, I could be a Warwick Thornton.
Well, what's the old adage? If you can see it, you can be it.
Yeah.
So
no, precisely, and I think it's really something that it's an aspirational thing that we can do. So, yeah, I think that's a big difference here. We're lucky; we've got the best Indigenous practitioners in Australia.
well, let's
By a long way.
capitalize on that.
Yeah.
So I think you've touched on some of the upcoming productions already. But is there anything that you maybe haven't mentioned that we should be keeping an eye on? If you've already touched on it, where do you see the screen industry for the territory going in the next 5 to 10 years?
Look, I think we're on our way. I'd like to see more local productions. I'd like to see us being bolder and braver, and I think we've started that. I think that started with Mavericks, with the Brindle Girls, and also with Tamarind Tree Pictures, with Barumbi. I'd like to see, Tommy's ambitious anyway, and I love his mind. I love his ambition. He's just out there doing it. He doesn't stay still. I'd like to see some of our other newer ones, and we've got some wonderful productions coming through in the development side. Samantha Lawton, working with Tanith Glenn Maloney and Dylan River. Oh, superb.
Great.
So I'd like to see a lot of that. And they do take a number of years to bring together, but we have got some of the most fantastic Territorian stories. I'd like to see more Territorian stories brought out to Australia. I'd like to see more Territorian stories going out to a global audience. And I want to see more opportunities for our guys here, and also our people here, and also to do more with, where it happens with building that tourism link in there, because I think that's really great for us.
Yep.
Because that'll just also enhance our ability to promote, all of the amazing things that the territory has to offer.
Yeah. Well, I think, if someone watches, say, Territory, and they think, I want to go and have a holiday there, and then they get to the Territory, and then they can go on a cattle, station experience, so they can live it. they see it and then they can live it. Is that sort of what you're?
That's exactly
Yeah.
right. And
Yeah.
I think, if you look at that, whilst it's probably not Tipperary's core business, it's a not fully operational cattle station and cotton station. At the end of the day, it's a value add business. I could see that being boutique out there. I think, I think people would love to stay out there.
I think that type of thing has massive potential in the
Oh,
territory.
me too.
I think you could almost run an accommodation style adventure or adventure accommodation at any single station in the territory, which would help cattle stations diversify. And I'm not really sure what needs to happen to do that. You might need to change the Pastoral Lands Act or something. There might need to be some
But if
legislative.
there's enough momentum behind that,
100%.
I think you do actually. I think you're absolutely bang on, because I think we'd have a conversation about
I think to even grow, say, crops.
Another crop.
Yeah, that's right. They have to change the legislation.
Yeah.
So, I think what it needs is like some political out of the box thinking, right? Where we go, okay, this is not, the industries could be so much more than it is.
Yeah. And working with those cattle stations
100%.
and things and other different sort of destinations. I mean, I think that's absolutely doable. Where there's a will, there's a way. I mean, we started off with like 3 local productions in documentary. That was when I first came here. It was Uluru Magician, Outback Ringer, and I think it was, Wild Things.
Right.
Really small documentaries. That's what we had. That was the sum total.
Yeah.
And now we're on the map.
Yep.
And we were behind. We were behind ACT. We were behind Tasmania. We were well and truly behind South Australia. We weren't even on the map with any of those guys. I'd argue that we've kind of caught up with South Australia now.
Well, it sounds like we're punching above our weight.
We are.
Ways, yeah.
We've gone well beyond Tasmania, well beyond ACT, and we've actually sort of, I think we're pretty close to South Australia. If we had a studio, I'm sure we'd surpass them.
Well, let's hope all that continues. Just to wrap up, how can people get involved with what Screen Territory is doing and be in the mix with what you guys have got
If you
going
get
on?
on to screenterritory.nt.gov.au, our website, just go on that, just look for contacts, just subscribe to our pixels when you go onto the website. If you're not sure, just ring us up, we'll let you know. Just list yourself on Real Scout. Again, just go to that website. It'll direct you to everything. There's also phone numbers on there. So just go to the website. You can, there's only 3 of us at the moment. We're advertising for a new person, but just ring us up. We'll sort of direct you to where you have to go on the website. It'll tell you about all the events. Subscribe to Pixel's newsletter. It will, you'll be able to get our newsletter every month or so. Facebook. We release stuff. We're always sort of like, posting on Facebook. Just engage, like really, really engage with us. Make sure you get out there. If you've got a business, register your business on Real Scout. We advertise for free and we use it. So all the, the accommodation providers we're working with here, restaurants, whatever. It just gives it just gives everyone an idea about what's here. The one thing was, I think Deadlock did a little kind of survey about from all of their crew to say who went out and did stuff. They flew friends in while they were here,
right, to
kind of go out on weekends with them and go to different places in the territory. They went out to all different restaurants. They went out on day trips. So, for businesses in particular, not just screen practitioners, don't forget to get on to Real Scout on Screen Territory.
Well, I run
website.
a small market stall at Mindle Beach, and I used to see all of the actors and, people gathering around them and, just wanting to be involved in it also. Yeah.
Oh, look,
great.
it's a community, medium. I mean, it's actually, you can't just make it on your own. It takes a village.
Yeah, I knew where you were going with that one.
Good way to end with
On
that one.
note, I think that's a good one. So it sounds like you guys have got some really amazing initiatives, and it sounds like you've got your hands full as well. But Jennie Hughes, really appreciate your time today, and best of luck in the future. I'm sure it's just upwards and onwards from here.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you, Stuart.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, everyone. See you next time.